In this video I will show you how to diagnose and repair some of these 80s, 90s stereo amplifiers and cassette decks. Mainly in this video I will focus on these cassette decks because this specific Sony system has problems with these. So this is Sony HSTD301, but I believe many same age devices have similar kind of cassette decks, especially if the device is Sony. So this is a dual deck device, and if you look inside, those decks are basically identical. So in this case I already fixed this one, so I can demonstrate the problem with this one and then show how it is fixed. First I'm going to tell how cassette deck should work, and then tell about some common problems and how to fix those. So let's remove the tape to get a better look inside. Here we can see the head, which is component that reads the tape. Then there's a metal pin and rubber wheel, and basically the tape goes between these two, and when tape is inside here and hatch is closed, this rubber wheel is pushed against the pin, and when the pin starts to turn, it will pull the tape out from the supply reel, and after it's read here and pushed out here, this take-up reel will collect the tape back in. So in theory the working principle is quite simple, but the mechanism inside of this cassette deck is actually quite complicated, because of course there's needs to go forward, backward, pause, etc. So there's actually a lot of stuff inside, and we check these later, but first I can show you how to diagnose the problem. So first thing to look is that all these components are clean, because if there's dust, for example here, the head can't read the tape, so there's no sound coming out even though all the other parts are working. If all parts look clean, there might be a problem that this metal pin here or these pins right here are not turning at all. In this case, the most common reason is that the belt is broken or stretched, so all the wheels and gears inside this cassette deck are not turning when they should. Then another problem could be that this pin is turning and this supply reel pin is turning, and actually sound is coming out of the speakers, but this take-up reel isn't turning, and it's hard to diagnose because all parts are looking good. Belt is intact and it looks like all the parts are moving as they should, but the reason might be slip clutch inside the cassette deck. And why this mechanism is needing that clutch is that depending how far the tape is going, this pin should turn in variable speed, so that it will keep slightly tensioned when the tape is red. So if it's pulling too hard, it may damage the tape, and if it's not pulling at all or too slow, the tape will be wrapped around here maybe, or might cause some other problems because the tape is not reeling in as it should. In this case, with this specific unit, the problem is that this pin is turning and this supply reel pin is turning, but this take-up reel pin is not working at all. So I can demonstrate how it works. If we put it in and push play, it looks like it's working and music is coming out of the speakers, but other reel is not turning at all. So when we stop and take the tape out, we can see that it's a mess. It's wrapped around the rubber wheel, and of course this may destroy the tape if you don't push the stop, or you may damage some of these components here if the tape is wrapped around and pulled. So next I'm going to show you why this happens and how to fix it. Now we look inside of this unit. So there's the tape deck with the problem, and as we look inside, I will push play. It seems like all parts are moving, everything's spinning nicely, but the problem here is that this clutch part, it should let these two discs kind of slide against each other, so that the take-up reel isn't pulling too hard the tape. So the slip will create just enough tension so that the tape is reeled in nicely after those metal pin and rubber wheel, as I showed you earlier. So this slip clutch is creating rotation here, but just enough so the tape is reeled in. If this clutch is stuck, it will create too much tension and it will damage the tape or some other components. And if the clutch is slipping too much, this will not turn at all, and this is the case here. Of course, when you're looking inside of the device, it's easy to double check that all the cables are mounted as they should, and also the belt is easy to inspect here. And before you stuck your hand or any tool inside, it's important to switch off the power if you don't want to get electric shock here. actually I'm going to pull the cable out, so it's a double check that no electricity is flowing anywhere here. Now it's safe to start kind of poking around. For example, this belt is easy to check. There should be a tension, so it's not much, but it should sound like a basically bass string or something like that. But of course, if you try, all parts should move easily by helping with your finger. And if the belt is broken, then of course nothing will happen. But in this case, the belts, both of these, are intact and the tension is quite good, so no need to replace those. So the main problem is just the clutch. So if you can see between those plates, we can see that there's two plastic wheels here, and then there's some foamy like disc between these. It's that white disc here, and the purpose of this is that when the belt is turning this bigger disc here, the disc between adds friction just enough that this is also turning, and when this disc is connected to the rod, it will rotate this rod, and the gears inside of the deck here, we can't see that now, but basically this rod is turning just because there's friction between these plates. And the problem now is that because this is old device, this friction plate or friction disc here is not adding the friction anymore. It's maybe hardened because of the time, but it should have some friction here, so that so that these parts can rotate together. And if I push this in, there's a spring behind to allow this movement. You can see that the friction is not much. It's very small parts to begin with, and then there's just a small surface area, so the friction is not much. But now there's basically no friction at all, and that's the problem. So we should increase the friction a little bit. And how to make it, how to increase the friction, I use this heat shrink tube and cut the straight flat area and make kind of a C-shaped disc, and it's basically slide in between the friction disc and the other disc, so it doesn't matter which way or which side of the friction disc. So basically you just push the bigger wheel inside so that there's a gap, and then drop that C-shaped heat shrink piece inside. And because there's a friction and the spring pushing these parts together, it will stay there even though it's not closed loop or hole in the middle. It will not fall out. Of course, only it may fall out if you push this while it's pointing downwards, but when this is operating, it will stay there because there's enough friction. And the point is that this material is kind of a rubber type. It's not full rubber, but something between plastic and rubber. It's how do you say? Well, rubber is quite what I'm looking for. This is not smooth surface, so there's some friction if it's pressed against the two surfaces. So the point is adding friction here. And next I'm going to put that piece in place and then show how the deck is working after that. Because these two decks are identical, I will demonstrate the working after the fix with this deck, because I already fixed this earlier. That one is not fixed yet. So now when the more friction is added, we press play and we can see that both of these pins are turning. So slip clutch is now working as it should. And here we can see the slip clutch looks same as earlier, but now it's working as it should.